Today is July 14th in the year 2000. I'm Karen Herman with the Archive of American Television, and it is my pleasure to be interviewing Barbara Billingsley in Santa Monica, California. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about your early years. And of course, the first question is, what was your name at birth?
Barbara Lillian Combs, Combes.
When were you born?
I'm not going to tell you. December 22nd.
No year?
No year.
Where were you born?
Los Angeles, California.
Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up. I went to high school here, started college, and then got a chance to go to New York to be in a play, which was a big flop. It ran 5 days.
We'll talk about that later. We still have a little bit more of your early years to cover.
Okay.
What was your father's name?
My father was Robert Collier Combs.
What did he do?
He ended up being the assistant chief of police of Los Angeles. He went through the ranks.
What about your mother? What was her name?
Her name was Lillian Agnes Gibson McLaughlin Combs.
Did she work?
Yes, she worked.
What did she do?
She worked in a factory. She was brought up in a very fine home in the East, came out here to marry my father, whom she knew there. And they had 2 children, and when I was an infant, he left. Now, I did see him through the years, but I never lived with him. Don't know what it's like. So I'm from a single-parent family with an older sister.
What's your sister's name?
Elizabeth Helen Combs McLaughlin. Her husband was McLaughlin.
Was it difficult growing up in a single-parent household?
Was I what?
Was it difficult growing up in a single-parent household at the
I
time?
didn't know any different until when I was in high school. Somebody said to me, "You're from a single-parent family?" That was unheard of, in those days. That was a long time ago. And my mother and father were divorced. And it was a disgrace to my mother. She wasn't trained to do anything. They were very young. So she got piecework that she did at home so she could take care of her children. And then later, when we were a little older, my sister, being 4 years older than I, she kind of took care of me. And there was always somebody to take care of me. My neighbor taught me how to read. I'll never forget it. Taught me how to tell time. She took care of me a lot of the time. Mrs. Tedford. I never knew her by anything but Mrs. Tedford.
Was your family affected by the Depression?
My mother was still working. She was working out of the home then. And no, we did not feel it that much because, and I know how horrible it was, but we didn't feel it that much because she by then she worked in a sweater factory. She had gotten, so she knew all about sweaters. She was now a cutter, and and so she was paid the same amount of money. She never lost her job. So, no, it did not affect us. It affected my aunt, who had 2 children, and my mother helped take care of them. So,
what were your hobbies when you were growing up?
my hobbies? I used to play tennis. I was lousy, but I loved it. You used to put a quarter in a meter, and the lights would come on, and you could play at night. And my sister married somebody she met on a tennis court, Robert McLaughlin, and they were married for so many years before she died. It was great, great. He was always part of the family.
Did you listen to the radio when you were growing up?
Yes. A radio was something you all sat around, and Jack Benny, Jello, and all the fire chief. Radio was special, and they had all kinds of things for children on radio. And then suddenly, when television came in, wow, we sat around the television, only we could now see. But I was thinking of that this morning. We sat around the radio as though we were seeing it. And all we were doing was hearing it.
Were you interested in movies, too?
Did I what?
Were you interested in movies?
Oh, my goodness. My mother being alone with 2 children, we went to so many movies. I didn't see too many comedies because she happened to like the drama. So I saw the dramas and all the big stars of those days. In fact, when she'd finish work on Saturday, she worked 5.5 days. On Saturday, my sister and I would get on the streetcar and we would go to meet her and we'd go to the movies. And it was wonderful. And then they used to have stage shows sometimes at the theaters in Los Angeles, like Pantages and various shows. It was great. And then whenever she could, she took us to plays. And I think that's where I got my interest in theater, is seeing so many plays and so many pictures.
Were you interested in theater at school?
Oh, yes. From the time I was second grade, I was in whatever they had. And I was queen of the school, and I was queen of the high school. So it was, I was always interested in their all their plays. And nobody else in our family had ever been in, except my mother loved it so much.
Do any of those productions stick out in your mind that you did?
Yes, Smiling Through, because I did it in high school. It's a dual role. You wouldn't even know what it is, but it was very popular at one time. It was a tearjerker. And I played the dual role in this. And that was a senior high school play we did. We pays to advertise, and they had good musicals too, but I wasn't a singer. I would have liked to have been.
Did any of your co-stars go off and do films or television?
I ran into one that was in Smiling Through with me. In fact, the day that we graduated, I went on my first airplane ride. Believe it or not, it was double-wing airplane, and you paid like $2. And then you could have, I don't know how long the ride was. He took me up, and my mother didn't know it, took me up in an airplane. It was this kind. They had better planes than that, but that's what we paid the $2 to be in. It was fun. That was Walter Barthol. And I ran into him at the music center. It must be 10 years ago now. But he was in the back seat of a car. They were leaving the theater, and he yelled, and I was with my husband, and it was fun to see him.
What high school did you attend?
George Washington. Washington. Nobody knows where it is. It's 108th and Dinker, and it's primarily black students now, but it's a really fine school. I have a stepson, Bill Mortensen, who is very charitable. And he told me about this school. They'd gone over and they were donating this fine school. I said, I graduated from there. And no one knows where it is, but it's, did I give you the address? It's 108th and Dinker, so it's way out there. And the house is still there that I lived in at that time.
Have you been back there?
My son Drew and I went on a nostalgic trip one day. He wanted to see an old house that he'd owned. So we went by there, and then we stopped and had lunch. And I said, how would you like to see a piece of property our grandmother left us? And so we went to see that. And then I said, how would you like to see where I lived? Well, I never dreamt the house would still be there. And the house was still there. And I moved there when I was about 5 and left after high school. And it's still there, only it has bars on the windows. And it's a small house, and they built a great big house in front of it. It was fun to see. Now my other son wants to go see it.
So what did you want to do after you graduated from high school?
I wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to be an actress. And as I said earlier, I got a chance to go to New York after I'd only gone a short time to college, to go to New York to be in a play.
What college was that?
LAJC, it was called then. Now it's Los Angeles City College, is it? Mm-hmm.
So you got a chance to go to New York. How did that come about for you?
Well, it was through this play that I had a chance to go and be in it. And I was young, and why my mother let me go, I was as innocent as the driven snow. And nobody told me one thing about living, not like today. And there I am. I went with an older woman, and I was in the play, but it only lasted this short time. And then my mother came from New York, so she came to New York so I could stay there if I wanted to. So that's how I ended up there. No more plays, though.
What
I
play?
did some on the road, but not out of New York.
Now, what play was that?
It was called Straw Hat Review. It wasn't Review. It was Straw Hat, and everybody thinks it's Straw Hat Review, but it wasn't. That was a success.
So you're in New York. So what did you do next? Did
Then
you
I
stay
then I
there?
got a job modeling, and I was pretty dumb. I didn't really know what I was doing, but they taught me, and it was Foxy Sondheim, and she's the mother of Stephen Sondheim, and they owned a dress house called Herbert Sondheim, and she was the designer. Very fine clothes. And then I worked at Chez Ninon, and for the first time saw the Duchess of Windsor, because she bought all of her clothes there. And I worked for Hattie Carnegie, a fine dress house. But I ended up getting married to Glenn Billingsley and moving to Florida. So I lived in Key West.
And who was Glenn Billingsley?
He was Sherman Billingsley, if you know the Stork Club. He was his nephew, and he worked at the Stork Club. That's how I got the name Billingsley. That was, I started acting after I was married to him, really. So that's how I got the name, and I just used Barbara Billingsley.
Now, were you working in Key West at all when you moved to Florida?
Was I what?
Were you working in Key West at all when you moved to Florida?
No, I was very pregnant. I got married there and then got pregnant quite quickly. And that's my son, Drew. He was born in Coral Gables, Florida.
And did you want to continue? Did you want to start
Oh,
acting
yeah.
right away?
I was happy. I've had many facets to my life. Everybody's story is different, how they start in their careers. And truly, I had already had 2 children before I was under contract to MGM. I unfortunately was divorced from my first husband. But no, it was, I was happy for a while. It wasn't a great marriage. It was a mistake. But I did get 2 fine sons.
Now, how did you come back to Los Angeles?
I came back with Glenn before Glenn was born. That's the younger boy. And then when he was about 5 weeks old, I decided I had to do something. So I went to a little theater called Bliss Hayden, famous theater at that time in Los Angeles. And I was in all the plays. And that's where agents used to come and look. And I ended up with a contract at MGM.
Now, had you been taking any kind of formal dramatic lessons?
No, unfortunately. I did go back to school at night, and I did take some classes. I did go later. I had some wonderful improvisation classes, and I even went to UCLA. But truly and honestly, I wish I'd had more. Yeah, I do think that the education is so good, and the confidence it gives you to know that you're prepared. I think that is a wonderful thing, and all young people should do that.
So how did you get into feature films?
Well, I was in a lot of pictures at MGM, but they were very small parts. And once I got to work with Katharine Hepburn, who's kind of a love of mine. I'd never really known her, but I've always admired her. She used to walk around the studio in her old tired pants and her hair all pulled up. She was young then, of course, all up in a knot. She looked great. And when as soon as she'd finished her scenes, she'd go and get in those old pants again. Some of them were torn. And there she go. But she was on the set of a picture that I did there. And I had been looking at another girl, and she had the most glorious hands and nails. And I've never had great-looking hands, so I was really admiring them. Katharine Hepburn came on the set, and she looked at this girl, and she said, "Oh, what useless hands." Well, I tell you, I appreciated my hands more ever since. She said it. Funny how somebody says something and it changes so much of your life.
What other work did you do at MGM?
At MGM?
Any specific roles that you had that stand out for you?
No, they weren't that large. I made some friends there, but no, I was so happy to be working. I was already, when I got the contract at MGM, I was divorced from the boy's father. So I was alone, and I was awfully happy to have a contract. So whatever they gave me, I was happy to do.
Were you typecast at all? Was there a certain part that you would seem to be playing a lot of, or a certain type of films?
A long time I was cast as the woman who was really the heavy, but nobody knew it. So it was casting, and suddenly I was the surprise that I was the guilty one, like in a mystery or something. I was the one that did the murder. Nobody suspected me. It was interesting. It was a chance to play other roles too.
Did you find yourself being recognized on the street?
Oh yes. People are very kind. Lots of fan mail still, would you believe it?
A couple of the films that you did, there was one called The Tall Target that you worked on.
Tall Target.
Do you remember that one?
Who was in it?
I don't know who was in it, but you played a young mother who ran into Abraham Lincoln before his assassination. Do you remember that?
Don't remember.
Also, you appeared in Three Guys Named Mike. Three Guys Named Mike.
Yeah, that was Katharine Hepburn and Dick Tracy, Spencer Tracy. Wasn't that? Am I right?
I have Jane Wyman.
Jane Wyman, yes. I played, we were all, got a picture. We were all airline stewardesses. And I can remember there was something wrong with the plane, and we all had to jump out, and we had to jump about 6 feet under mattresses. And as we went, we called Geronimo. So, yeah, that was with Jane Wyman, that's right.
Okay, let's talk about the first time that you saw television. Do you remember the first time you saw it?
I saw it in 1937 when nobody had ever seen television. It was in New York. I was at someone's apartment, and he had a television. Now, it couldn't have been sending very far, whatever the station may have been, but there was television then.
Do you remember who it was that had the set?
No, I don't have the foggiest. I was so intrigued with this thing. Here was a box with pictures in it. And I said 37, but I want to qualify that because I'm not sure. I was in New York, and I didn't go to New York until 1939, when I got married in 1940.
Were you at the 39 World's Fair in New York?
Yes.
Did you see, because television was there as well, did you see it at the fair?
Don't remember it. I was going out with my future husband, Glenn. I guess I was so intrigued. I don't know. I don't remember having seen it there, but I did see it in someone's apartment.
What were your first impressions of it when you saw it?
Well, I had no idea what I was looking at. And then, of course, they were talking about this was the future, and boy, was it. It was absolutely wonderful, and wonderful for me, because I made most of my career out of television. And as soon as it came in, I was working all the time.
Is that something that you saw yourself doing right off the bat, or?
I saw myself doing it right.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah. When you saw television, did you say, "Hey, this is for me"?
Oh no. I wasn't thinking that far. I was getting married.
Do you remember your first appearance on television?
Not really. There were lots of quiz shows. Hans Conried was doing. You probably, maybe in your notes have. I can't remember them. I think it was KTT Eller, and he could answer anything having to do with Shakespeare. He was remarkable. Everybody loved to listen to that show because of Hans Conried. You don't know who Hans Conried is, but he did a lot of work. Played Nazis a lot of times.
Let's talk about some of the work that you did, particularly on Schlitz Playhouse of the Stars. Can you describe that experience for us?
You mean 4-star?
Oh, Schlitz Playhouse of the Stars.
Oh, Schlitz Playhouse of the Stars. Well, I worked. Bill Self was the producer. My husband, at that time, I had remarried. He directed some of the shows. I was in the first one, which was called Barrow Street, and there were more stars playing. And I was talking to Bill Self yesterday. He said that they made those shows for $27,500 an episode. No star was paid more than $2,500. And if you're with a star, you got $1,000, and then way down. And they had Anne Bancroft. They had Sterling Holloway. Not Holloway. I worked with him too. Sterling Hayden. Charles Bickford. Gosh, what are some of the others? Hans Conried. He did some. In fact, I did one with him where we worked with a lion, a real lion. That is something.
What happened during that production?
Well, they would feed this thing, and it would be a dishpan like that of milk that this cat would lick up. He put his teeth through a sofa, big leather, heavy sofas. His teeth would go right there. Well, Hans is lying down on the couch, and he's supposed to be resting, and there's a fire, and the lion is supposed to pull a blanket and wake him. Well, he got a little deeper than that, and he got his teeth a bit into Hans. Well, I'm telling you, Hans was out of that chair and across the set before you could figure it out. And you know, the crew, they were all in cages. They weren't working with a lion. They weren't taking... It was an amazing thing. I did 2 shows with the lion.
Was this live?
No, they weren't live. They were Schlitz. Schlitz Playhouse of Stars. No, I did a lot of live, though.
Do you remember anything else about the Schlitz Playhouse of Stars? How the rehearsals went? And
Schlitz Playhouse? Mm-hmm. You didn't rehearse. You rehearsed when you were on camera and you'd had your script, but you didn't rehearse per se. You'd rehearse and then shoot. But it was shot just like a movie. Now, many things then were shot with 3 cameras and with a live audience. I guess that didn't happen really until, teleprompters were in and everything. But I did a lot of live that went right out. There was no tape. There was nothing to help you. In fact, I worked with Ethel Barrymore on Climax. Am I getting ahead of my time?
We'll be talking about Climax a little.
Okay, we'll talk about that a little later. So Schlitz. No, it was done just like a movie is done. So you learned your scenes and you did the scenes, you know. They might be out of order, but you did them just like a movie. So, and you could redo them if you didn't hear them. Sometimes you did them a whole lot of times.
And you said your second husband worked on the show as well?
He did. He worked on Schlitz, and he worked on 4-Star Playhouse. He was an Englishman, and he come here to direct a picture, and then he got into television.
What was his name?
Roy Colino, and he died very young. We'd only been married 3 years when he had a heart attack and died.
Now, did he cast you in a lot of these roles?
No. The casting people cast you. No. Mm.
Can you talk about some of the producers of Schlitz Playhouse of Stars?
The producers of what?
Of Schlitz Playhouse of Stars.
The producers?
Yeah. Did you work with Joseph Nahr at all?
Yes, I did, but I can't remember what. I don't think it was on Schlitz. I think we did a movie together. And, I don't think that was Schlitz. But you know, that's a long time ago. Let's get a little fuzzy and all mixed up.
Okay, we know you remember William Self. What can you tell me about him?
Bill Self, he was the producer of all of the shows. And they made 208, and they made one a week. And it went right on through the summer and everything that they did these shows. And I had a good time yesterday telling him, we beat, because we made 234 of the Beavers, and he'd made 208.
How many of the Schlitz Playhouse of Stars do you think you were on?
I think I was on the 2 lion ones. I was on one with our president, Ronald Reagan, our former president. A very nice man, by the way. I followed his career so long before he was governor and then president.
Can you talk about working with him a little bit? I know that you worked on 2 episodes. The Doctor Goes Home was one of them, and the other one is The Jungle Trap.
That's right. We wore pith helmets. And yeah, it was a fun one because we were supposed to be out in a big jungle. We only had a small jungle, but we'd keep making circles around the jungle. It's surprising how you could improvise those days.
And then you also worked on Some Delay at Fort Bess.
Oh yes,
Hayden.
that was Sterling Hayden. We laughed so at the name because there was a what did I say? Something about blue feather. Something was so silly.
So Blue Feather is bluffing?
Yeah, we think blue feather is bluffing. Well, I think they changed the name of blue feather to something else, but it was kind of fun. No, it was good days. They were good days, and that wasn't a pressure. That was making like a movie. Only you were making a half-hour one. The lie was, when we get to that, I'll talk about pressure.
Okay, how about 4-Star Playhouse?
Oh, 4-Star was 4 stars. It was Dick Powell, David Niven, and Charles Boyer. And the 4th one was Don Sharp, who was the producer. And so often people thought it was Ida Lupino because she did so many of those shows, but she was not one of the 4 stars. And I worked with David Niven on a couple of those, and I worked on with Dick Powell, never with Charles Boyer, and I worked with, Judith Anderson, big star of Broadway, and Van Johnson did them. Gosh, you could go on and name all these big names that worked in television half-hour shows. And there was only one sponsor in those days, remember. The other day I was looking at television, I counted 8 sponsors. And you were freer in those days to do television. People could submit scripts from around the country, and you had to be careful of plagiarism, of course, but they did get some artistic shows and some things where today it seems to be all business. It's businessmen running it, and how much a show hardly gets a chance to stay on if they don't have an audience right then. And they don't make anywhere near as many as we did. We made, I'm referring again to Beaver, 39 a year we made. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's stop here to change the tape.